Ние сме готови да започваме. Вие готови ли сте? Да? Добре. Каня тези от вас, които все още не са обратно по местата си, да се настанят. И се надявам обяда така да ви е разведрил, енергизирал и сега обратно с тази енергия да се фокусираме пак върху нещата, които споделяме и които дискутираме цяла сутрин. Сега след обяда ще продължим с още доста практически ориентирани сесии. И бих искала да ви представя първия лектор от нашия следващ панел, който се казва ангажираност. Ще говорим за ангажираност. И първият ни гост е Христо Бояджиев от Despark. Той е много енергичен, както ще видите след малко, лидер и освен това социален предприемач. Той е човек, който съчетава страстта си към дигиталното, новото, технологията, с желанието да прави социална промяна всеки ден. И го прави по много различни начини. Сега ще ни разкаже поне за един от тях. Христо, сцената е твоя.
Много благодаря за милото представяне. I'm going to do this in English, if you don't mind, because I think there's some English speakers in the house. Good morning, everybody, or good day. It's good to see you all. We're going to talk about transparency and fairness. I'd like to take you sort of on a story. It's a very personal story of how we turn the ship around, if you will, at my company called Despark. But before I do that, sorry. I'd like to get to know you. If you could, with a show of hands, tell me how many of you are in the HR field? Okay. How many of you are in other managerial positions where people depend on you? Okay, I think pretty much everybody else. What kind of companies do you work in, or organizations? Less than 30 people? 50, 30 to 100? Above 100? Okay, so some big ones, some small ones? Okay. How many of you think that the stuff you're kind of hearing today, you would be able to potentially implement in your organizations? You're the decision makers in this. Okay, it's about half. That's good. That's a good start. How many of you know why you're here today? Just kidding. This clicker isn't working, so I apologize. I'm going to have to do this manually. Now, let me take you a bit in time. About 2 years ago, we were in deep doo-doo, put it that way. I run a digital company called Despark. We build websites and mobile web applications. To put it bluntly, we had sales weren't working. We had no new business. The clients we currently had were pretty pissed off at us because we had messed up a few projects, and that's an understatement. We had a demotivated team because of all these things. People were leaving. I think about 10 people left in a span of a couple of months, maybe. We had a net loss of about a couple of 100,000 levs in 2015. So it was a pretty grim situation, if you put it that way. And to top it all off, we had a new investor in our company, a UK company, which had high expectations. They bought it in the previous year, and they were hoping for a skyrocketing, hugely successful financial year, and then they got a net loss company, which obviously wasn't. It kind of fell down on us to, what do we do? So the question we always ask ourselves is, okay, so how do you turn the ship around? Like, where do you start? Nothing seemed to be working. What's your entry point? How do you tackle this seemingly untangible thing? Do you start with the team? Do you start with the clients? Do you start with bringing new sales? And if this were a movie, I think there'd be one brilliant idea that just comes out of nowhere and everybody goes, yes, that's it, we're going to do it. Unfortunately, that wasn't the case. I think it never is in reality. And what you find is there's a lot of little light bulbs that kind of lit up. A little idea here and an idea there, and somebody pitches one thing and somebody else pitches another thing, and things started falling into place. I think it's very important at this point to say that all of these ideas weren't a single person's doing, especially mine. I think it's always a team effort. You always have to be receptive of the fact that there will be ideas coming from the most unexpected of places. It could be someone very junior in the team. It could be someone in your management team. It could be yourself as well. Obviously, if you're leaders in your companies and people depend on you, they're going to look to you to make some decisions to fix some things, but be receptive to hearing other ideas. So we quickly realized, I think, that our focus needed to be on people. And that's not something that is just because you read in books. Obviously, we've all heard the Richard Branson start on people because people take care of clients. But until I started leading a company and we were in that really low position we were in, I didn't really realize how very true his words are. If you have to start with people, you have to make sure that your people are happy, because that will unlock many other things down the line. But there were some issues obviously in front of us that we needed to face. Number one, there was a lack of trust. Hopefully, some of you have heard of the 5 dysfunctions of a team. If you haven't, look it up, it's very interesting. But the basic, it's kind of like Maslow's hierarchy of a pyramid, but the 5 dysfunctions of a team, the basic one, the most fundamental level is the lack of trust. And we had a lack of trust. People didn't trust one another. I didn't trust decisions that my team was making. They didn't trust decisions I was making. And that's never a recipe for success, is it? There was a lot of us versus them. Managerial decisions, top down. People knew that situation wasn't great. We weren't transparent. People didn't know the finances of it. But you could sense there was tension in the air. And you could sense, my worried face, somebody else's worried face who knew the picture. And there was a lot of also the decision makers, the bosses are doing whatever they're doing. It wasn't transparent immediately to them what was going on. And that created a divide, which is never a good thing in any company. There's a lot of top-down decision-making, as I just mentioned, which annoyed people. I think people want to be involved. People want to understand. We had very little team spirit and support because of where we were. People weren't feeling that they can pitch in, even though there's a deadline. Why would I stay up late and do work? People don't respect me. People don't value my opinion. There wasn't that team spirit that you need. And there was a lot of salary discrepancies. That infamous example that I always use. In the worst possible time, a senior member of our team comes up to me and says, I need a 1,000 lev increase, which is about 30, 40%, 50, whatever it is, a massive increase in their salary. And you know that you can't afford not to give them that salary, because if they quit, your last semi-decent project is going to fall on you. But if you do that, they'll leave anyway in 6 months, because they've already made up their mind they're going to leave. And it's going to be really unfair to the remaining 30 people who you haven't been able to give salary increases because of all the doo-doo you're in already. So that was an issue, obviously, in front of us. But what do you need for a motivated team? That was a question we kind of asked ourselves. And I'm not saying this is an exhaustive list by any means, but those are some things we've talked about. You need vision and values. You need a clear direction of where you're going. You need people to understand what you value. And not only that, it shouldn't be just words on a wall. It needs to be, what are the principles you fall behind, and then actually doing actions which correspond to what you're saying your values are. Because we had values on a wall, we just never followed them. And that's the worst possible thing, isn't it? You need great projects, you need people to be excited. They need skill growth. They need to feel that they're learning, they're progressing, they're learning new things. You need, obviously, amazing people. I don't want to work with somebody who I don't like. Nobody does. So you need people who like one another and they feel like they can learn from one another. It's an amazing team of professionals. You need adequate pay. It's very obvious to say, but you need a certain level of pay that above which, obviously, it's nice to have, but there's a certain level you got to reach, and we were below that level at that point. And you need decision autonomy. People need to feel that they can make decisions, and people respect their decisions, and they have authority within what they're doing, which again wasn't quite what we were doing at the time. So what we came up with are 5 pillars of how we wanted to transform our company. And I'm not going to talk about all 5 of them because we don't have the time, but they were fairness, transparency, autonomy, awareness, and humility. And I'll focus on the first 2. And I'm happy to have a later conversation about the other ones if you'd like. We started with fairness. And as I mentioned earlier, there was a situation where somebody else needed to be brought up in the team. We had a new positions, and the market had moved, and they needed a much higher salary than somebody else in the team. But what about the person who's been with us for 5, 6, 7 years, never raised their head to say, I need a better salary, and they've been a very loyal team member? It's very unfair to give the new guys a higher salary, but you're never in a position to give the old guys a good salary, isn't it? So we said, we need to get rid of this. We need a fair way to pay people. And we were inspired by a company called Buffer. If you don't know them, look them up. But not only, there's other companies doing this. And we created this formula, a model of ours, of how we create salaries. And it's very simple. It looks very simple. It's a bit more complicated in an Excel spreadsheet, but essentially there's a Despark base salary that we start from, and then we multiply based on certain variables, like what's the market demand for your position? What's the company value for your position? No offense to the office manager, but a senior developer is more valuable on the market and to us than it is their position. What is your seniority? Are you a senior? Are you a junior? Are you intermediate? Are you in a test period? Oftentimes people jump ship just because they want to get new salaries, and they leave in 4 or 5 months, and that puts in a bad position. So what we do is in the first 6 months, you get a reduced salary. And then if you stay beyond the 6 months and it's a successful test period for both sides, we give you that difference to your normal salary as just a one-off payment. So you get it anyway. It's more of like a delayed payment for us. And it incentivizes people to know that you're not going to move for the higher salary with us. You're going to move because you want to stay with us. Loyalty. We pay people more if they stay with us. Each year, they get a certain percentage increase in the salary regardless of what they do. If you're good enough to be with us, and mind you, after this, I've let go a few people who haven't met the standards that we have now, but if you make this cut and you continue being with us, you get a raise. So no more of this, somebody comes in and they're way below market, they're above market value, and now we're paying people below. Everybody's paid really well currently. And if you have children, I think we're professionals, we're no longer in our 20s, unfortunately, and people have families, and we need to pay them adequately, so we give them an additional per child stipend per month. And that creates our fairness model. And we introduced it. It was a very interesting thing when we crunched the numbers. It came, and I'm not kidding, we crunched the numbers, and it turned out that we had to increase salaries by 80% net value, something like that, which we didn't do, obviously, from day one. We did in chunks. So we started with, I believe it was 30-40% initial increase, and then based on certain targets as a team, mind you, not as individuals, as a team, as a company, we started gradually increasing the salaries, and I think it was beginning of this year we made the final step. And the model moved a couple times after that, because each year we check what the market's doing and readjust our model, but we're now up to the model standards, and I can easily say that we've increased at least 80% our wages in the past couple of years, which, again, in a situation where your investors are really tired of you losing money, convincing them that I need to raise salaries by 50% was not an easy thing to do. I should say that it's never a completely objective thing. There's always going to be an element of subjectivity in it, but it is miles ahead of what it was before. At this point, I don't determine salaries. Somebody comes to me and says, Hristo, I need a $1,000 increase. I go, well, if you do that, there's your model, and you need to increase, and you get that. So it makes my job easier. We removed bonuses as well, by the way. There's no individual bonuses in our company anymore. It's only team ones. If you reach certain standards, there's a pool of cash, and that gets distributed based on your net salary. I don't make half of the bonus pool because I run the company. I make what's the fair amount of percentage my net salary according to everybody's net salary. So we think that promotes team spirit, and that's important. Transparency. We started with a culture where there was a lot of hush-hush and we don't talk about this, and there's a lot of unknowns, to a place where no question gets unanswered. You can go up to anyone and ask any question, and especially myself or any of the leadership team members, and they need to give you a response. So you have access to all the information you want within a company, even if it's a delicate question. Like, for instance, a couple of months ago, I had to unfortunately let go of a team member who was underperforming, who was very, I think, personally liked by people on the team. And I gathered a team afterwards and I explained my reasoning. I said, those are the reasons why I did make this decision. And it's not easy to stand in front of 30 people and explain yourself every single time. And I don't do it every single time, mind you, but for important things like this, you need to be able to do that. So that transparency requires a lot of you if you're going to do it correctly. We started talking about company performance and the P&Ls. I had to explain what a P&L is first, but then I started to explain how we make our money and try for them to understand that you being delayed on a project pushes back the deadline, which pushes back our payment, which means that, rather than a project being £10,000 a month, if you do it in 5 months, and if you do it in 10 months, it's less half the money, essentially, for us per month. And that's a concept that, no offense to any developers in the house, but that wasn't quite a familiar concept in my company. It is now. We openly discuss challenges ahead of us. For instance, currently we have an issue where somebody's trying to buy our office, and so we're trying to buy back our office. It's a bit of a complicated thing. And we openly talk about it because we feel that people need to know these things rather than being held in the dark. We help people understand how do they fit in, because before, as I mentioned earlier, somebody was like, well, what do I care if there's a deadline? Company's not doing well, or is it doing fine? How do I fit into this? How do I help? I think everybody now understands that every single decision they make, every single deadline they meet or not meet affects the overall company. And there's a lot of finer details. Obviously, I'm giving you broad strokes of how this happened, but I can confidently say that people know this now. Whereas before, they didn't really understand how they fit into the overall machine. They didn't understand that they're cogs in a machine. I'm the same cog as everybody else, and if I don't do my job, the machine's not going to do as well. But even if the most junior person doesn't do his job, we're still not going to function well. And that was an important message to relay. And then we revealed salaries, which was something people, I don't know, I loved it. I thought it was a great idea. I revealed my salary first. I think people had this notion that I was making a bazillion, like a huge amount of money, and that's why the company wasn't doing well, because I was taking all the cash for myself. Not the case. Actually, up until recently, I wasn't the highest paid person in the company, which is when I revealed the salary. People for a good few months were like, you're probably lying to us. I'm not kidding. They thought I was lying to them by saying this is my salary. I had to provide pay slips, and I'm not even kidding. I provided pay slips. And anyway, people don't trust you sometimes. Lack of trust, remember? And then we started with the managerial team salaries. Then I think it was January this year, we revealed all the salaries to everybody else. So now that people know the model of how the salary is made, they know what every person in the team makes, that conversation is gone. We don't worry about the salaries anymore. We worry about projects and good work, stuff like that. It's exciting. So those are the big plans. Question is, where do you go from here? It sounds like a lot of pompous words and good on paper, but even a 30-person ship is hard to turn around. How do we do it? It was a step-by-step approach. We started in 2016, I think it was January, so about 2 years ago now, by announcing our plans of what we were going to do. A very clear vision of where we wanted to be is how we run the company. Some of the things I talk about today, more things obviously to the team. And then each month, I do monthly catch-ups with the team. I get up and I talk for about an hour. Each month, we picked a topic and we started talking about it. We talk about what is a P&L, how do we make our money, and then what are our expenses. And 85% probably of our expenses are salaries. So it was very quick. It was quick for them to understand that, if we don't do well on a project, and we need to delay a payment, and we don't make money, that clearly directs to I'm not going to fire people, but there's a direct correlation between how you make your money and how you pay your people. And that wasn't quite apparent before. It is now, which I think helps people be motivated. They know why they need to do what they do, why we ask them to fit within a deadline, why we ask them to do A, B, C, or D. Actually, I don't even ask anymore. People know. People just understand how the business is run. And I mentioned already that it was a step-by-step approach in how we increased their salaries. We couldn't have, 50% was high enough. I couldn't have done 80% in one jump. But we gradually increased salaries, and there was targets. It's very important to have targets as a team. If we do this in Q1, we're going to increase the next step. If we do this in Q2, you're going to, and so on and so forth. And we got to where we are today. Sorry, what was the last thing? We didn't share everything out front. I think if you try to put yourselves in the shoes of somebody who's working in a company who's very closed off and there's no information, and you suddenly open the floodgates, I think that would be a little too much. So we revealed all these things gradually. It took time for people to understand all the concepts we wanted to share. So it probably took a better half of the 2016 to share some of these things, and then we're still doing some of these in 17 and helping people understand it. There's questions, but I can sense that. And in the monthly catch-ups, before when I started sharing, people were kind of sitting silently. It's a very Bulgarian thing, by the way. People don't really ask questions in Bulgarian. I don't know what it is. But now they do. I think we've shifted the culture a little bit. People ask questions. They go, why did you do this? Why did this happen? Or da-da-da-da. And that's very encouraging to me, because changing a culture, even for a 30-person company, let alone a 100-plus person company, that'll be difficult. So what are the challenges ahead? You have to be consistent. It takes time. In and out, every single day. You can't falter. If you say you're going to do one thing and you don't do it, that's it. People lose trust. If you have to be very clear and open in your communication. You can't afford to hide stuff. Once you've said you're never going to do that again, because people lose trust in you. You have to strive for objectivity, even though that's just not possible. There are going to be times when you're going to make tough decisions, like letting people go, or not taking on a project, or whatever it is, and people will disagree with you, a difference of opinion. And you're not going to be, there's no 100% objectivity to everybody. People have different perceptions. But you have to explain your logic and your reasoning and hope that some people agree with you. If they don't, that's fine. It's part of learning. If you make promises that you can't keep, you're going to be penalized for it. It's as simple as that. Remember when you were young and your parents promised you that little amazing gift, they never gave it to you? Oh, you were pissed, weren't you? Same thing. Transparency does not equal democracy, by the way. Just because we're very transparent doesn't mean currently that everybody makes every decision. I think that's super ineffective. We have what we call areas of responsibility, and we have authority to make decisions within those areas of responsibility. I'm not going to ask a junior person to make a decision if they're going to fire somebody. It's just, I make that decision. I'm liable to explain that decision in my logic and reasoning, but if I had to every single time make a tough call, ask 30 people or more, I'm hoping that we grow as a company, that's just going to be very slow, isn't it? Not to say democracy isn't a good thing, I'm saying how we currently function with a UK investor, it's not as easy to be fully democratic as it sounds. I'd love to be somehow, but we'll see. And financial implications on decisions, basically there's a financial decision pretty much behind everything, which is, it's hard to find a balance and not make people feel like I'm here just to make money. But bottom line is, that's how businesses are run. And you need to keep that fine balance between making sure people are happy and motivated and work on great projects, and understand that some of these decisions affect the finance, which is ultimately how a lot of decisions are made. So has it helped? Yeah. Since we implemented the model, I think only one person has voluntarily left the company. I've had to, as I mentioned, let go of people because they were below our standards of what we needed. But we have a motivated team now. We had, in 16, a 75% increase in turnover from a 200,000 lev loss in 15. We had a sizable, I don't want to disclose numbers at this point, but a sizable profit in 16. Clients were happier. Team had grown. I mean, it sounded like we turned the ship around. This year hasn't been as amazing as 16, but it's still been great. We've done a great job. We have a motivated, great team. And I think there's plenty of other factors that have helped this. It's not just this, but I think this has been very instrumental. So why are you doing this again? Do you think it's a PR move? I think there's a couple of newspapers that did articles on us, and they said, you're doing this transparency thing because you want to get free PR, isn't it? No. I'm doing this, and we're doing this, because we believe that's the better way to run a company. I don't think I'm qualified to make every single decision in a company, and I don't want to be qualified to make every single decision. Previously, sometimes, I had to make decisions about, should I buy toilet paper? I don't care about this stuff. There are people who can make those decisions. You have budgets, and you make a decision. I don't care about office supplies. It's not what I'm there for. And we gave people the ability to make those decisions, which is exciting. I want people who think. I want people who are not robots. Before I was, but I didn't do it because you didn't ask me to. I don't have to ask you to do anything. You need to understand why you're doing this. You need to tell me what I need to do a better job. And I'm not saying 100% of the way there, but we're moving that direction. And especially important for young people like millennials, they need values. They need to buy into something. They're not going to be mindless robots working for you if all you do is grudging work 10 hours. They're going to quit. They want purpose. Give them purpose. What does the future hold? I don't know. That's the beauty of it. I have no idea. I really want to be we're a fully transparent company inside already. I'm trying to think of ways to now almost fully make it transparent on the outside. We'll see, hopefully. The model isn't perfect. It's just not. But it's miles ahead of where we were before. And I'm really proud of our team and what we've done. And I overextended my time a little bit, but here's some books worth reading. Oh, they're great. And thank you for your time. Appreciate it.